if I went back to my old ways, it wouldn't take long for people to be beating on my door or calling my wife or figure like, hey, where's Jonnie? What's going on? Like, that's what it's all about, man. And then not being afraid to pick up the phone, not worrying about what the other one, like I'm burdening somebody. Look, I'm a busy guy, but most people figure it out. Most of my real close friends know that if I don't pick up, I'll call you back. You're not burdening nobody, man. If you got something going on, give me a call. And that's the hardest part, I think, for us as men is to be able to reach out for help, ask for help. Guys, welcome. We're here at the first episode of Discipline and Legacy. My name's Jonathan. Super happy to have you here. Like I said, first episode, first opportunity to get things out here in the open. And I got my partner here, Paul. Paul came in today, wanting to share his testimony, share his story, give a little bit of why his discipline and legacy are important to him. And I'm going to hand everything over to him at this point. Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself.
First and foremost, Jonnie, thank you for the opportunity. Driving down here and reflecting on the fact that I get to sit down and do my first very own podcast and get my story out there in front of people that normally wouldn't get the chance to hear it, I think is very special to me. So I'll just jump right into it. My name's Paul. I'm 34 years old. My wife and my daughter and I just relocated down to Florida, born and bred in New York. Couldn't take the lifestyle there anymore, and we needed a change. So been with my wife for 5 years. She's the most important thing in my life, and she said she wasn't happy. So it's my job, right, to make her happy. And I gave up a career I had for 10 years, big old security blanket that defined me in every way, shape, and form. I was a union man. I worked for the same company, drew a paycheck every Friday for almost 10 years. And not knocking anybody who does it because it was great while it lasted. But I was sitting there and I had this thought in my head, the world's such a big place. How can I tell my kids that I lived a full life if I lived and died in the same place? And, I wanted to see what I was made of, and with the support of my wife, I've always known it, but I'm starting to realize it now that I could do anything I want, And I get a little emotional about that because it's so true. It hits home, We were just talking about it before we went live. The text message she sent me, that she's proud of me for sitting down and doing this. As uncomfortable as she saw that I was leaving the house, getting ready for this thing, I did it anyway. I had a million chances to back out. And I said, what's the worst that could happen? So, moving down to Florida has been the best thing that I've ever done in my life. And if it wasn't for my wife, I would have never made that choice because I was comfortable in New York. I knew everybody. Everybody knew me. I could drive the roads down there blindfolded, up there rather. I didn't have to use the GPS. I knew where all the good food spots were. I knew where all the cheapest gas stations were. I knew it all, right? It was my backyard. And the point of that is that you never grow staying comfortable. And that's what I was. I was very, very comfortable. And I wouldn't have grown. I would have lived a very normal, day-to-day, mundane, plain old regular life until I was able to retire from the union and, I don't know, go fishing or play golf or whatever I chose to do at that later age to enjoy my retirement. But I think there's a lot more to life than that, So, like I said before, moving to Florida was the best thing I ever did because it made me step out of my comfort zone. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. I had to put myself out there. I had to make myself vulnerable I met you, and you have single-handedly changed the trajectory of my life without even knowing it. And back home, making whatever I made an hour and relying on Old Faithful to hit every Friday, direct deposit was great. 401k, stock option, health benefits, overtime. It was cool. But it prevented me from wanting more in life, right? Because I was too afraid to lose that. So coming down here and starting over from scratch at 34 years old, the scariest thing I've ever lived through. And I've lived through a lot. You know my story, at least most of it. I shouldn't be here, sitting here, talking to you at this podcast in Miami, healthy, sober, in touch with my faith, that wasn't how it was supposed to end up, I probably shouldn't have made it past the age of 21, but I did. And then I made it past the age of 25, and then I turned 30, and now I'm sitting here, new chapter in my life. I want to say new book, because that old book was written. All those chapters were fulfilled,
That's powerful.
Yeah, it really is. And the more I reflect on it, the more powerful it becomes, because the more, I don't even know how to put it into words, right? The more I talk about it, the realer it becomes, if that even makes sense. I have a tendency to downplay stuff. I have a tendency to self-sabotage. I have a tendency to not give myself enough credit, be my own worst critic, and all that does is hold me back. So when you texted me and said that, what we're going to be focusing on, or the name of the podcast, Discipline and Legacy, it really made me sit back and think, like, whoa, what does that mean to me? And I think that meaning changes day by day and week by week, right? Because I'm hit with all this new stuff constantly, and I don't know how to interpret it, and I don't know how to digest it, and internalize it, and make it make sense. But I persevere through it anyway, right? It doesn't have to make sense to me at that very moment in time, right? I can fight through whatever uncomfortability I'm in or whatever obstacle I have to get over, and then a week, month, or a year later, it can click, and that's okay. But that's where discipline comes in, right? You mentioned it to me before. Discipline isn't, your principal pulling you into the office and giving you detention, right? It's mastering a form of learning, in a sense, right? That's why they refer to the martial arts as a form of discipline, right? When you master kung fu or karate, you're a kung fu master. I don't know anything about that, but when topics like this get brought up, you start to think a little bit, right? Because you hear that all the time, kung fu master, but it doesn't apply to your life in any way, shape, or form. For me, at least, it never did. And when I start putting myself in different situations, I'm presented with different opportunities to think, right, and to see how it applies in my life. And discipline has gotten me to where I am today. And it's looked very different from time to time, right? I want to focus a little bit on lack of discipline, right? Lack of discipline has got me into some pretty dark and scary situations. Because for me, the way I lived at an early age, it was a lot easier for me to be undisciplined and choose the easier way out, the stuff that felt bad. It made me feel good until it didn't. For some reason, the way I'm wired, when I was growing up, doing the bad stuff felt easier than doing the good stuff. And I think that it's safe to say a lot of people are like that. They just don't have the balls to admit it, you know? I have no problem admitting who I am because I know who I am, right? Anytime anybody ever meets me for the first time, I tell them I'm an open book. I'm going to give you everything I got.
You ain't lying.
Right? I mean, I told you everything from square one.
Yeah, I think that if there's one thing that I can definitely say that, you know, through meeting this gentleman right here is that, you know, you meet certain people in life, and I think we all have it inside of us, right? I think we all have that grit, that dog in us, that just mentality of doing and being what it is that we want to be and want to do, but it takes us to a certain point in our lives before we can become that. And when I first met Paul, I mean, he came across, he reminded me a lot about myself, you know, whenever I was early on in my journey as well, that I was just so hungry for just something new, something to change. And I was scared. Fear held me back. Fear is a lack of faith, you know? And I think whenever you finally take that step over that line where that you were so scared to walk over for so long and so many years that, hey, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, what's the worst that could happen? And you realize that winning those little battles gets you to the point where you're like, I got this. We got this, you know? But that's definitely something that rubbed off on me that you know, you meet certain people in life and you just got to hang on to them because God brings people into your life, even if it's for a season, you know, and I asked him, I said, what am I supposed to learn from this? Because as much as you think that I'm helping you, you're helping me too. And that's, you know, there's a movie called The Forge that if anybody's heard of it, I highly recommend that you go and watch it. And it's something that, you know, a group of us guys and you know, that I've met over the years in my faith walk, we are looking to start doing locally. And it's, you know, as we grow in our faith and become successful and become productive members of society again and be able to grow in our faith, God just brings people into your life and you don't even know, and you're supposed to take them under your wing and you're supposed to help them. And it's more than just helping somebody say this prayer of salvation. You can go and say, hey, 5,000 people said the prayer of salvation with me in a group, but are you taking them by the hand and helping them to get past the next step through just because you become a believer and a follower doesn't mean life gets easier. It gets harder. You're getting attacked daily, and you got to be able to combat that. Can't do it alone. You got God and you got people that God's placed in your life. So definitely give you kudos for that, for stepping out of that fear and letting discipline take over. Because like you said, the word discipline means to teach. You know, for so many years you think it's like, oh, well, I'm going to go discipline my son. That means I got to go spank him. No, that means that I need to take him and say, hey, do you know why I want to spank you? It's because your actions have caused everyone around you to have to go out of their way to make sure that you're catered to and to teach them instead of, you know, that's what it means. And we learn over time through disciplining ourselves and having self-discipline to move past that.
Yeah.
And carry it on to the next person, our kids, our wife. You know, that's what we're called to do is to be leaders to others in our life.
Complete strangers.
Yeah.
Right.
But, and obviously, you know, it's not easy.
No.
I still struggle with it daily with certain things in my life that I'm like, man, but I'm scared. I'm scared to do this. I have a fear of getting on camera and talking and saying stuff to people just off the top of my head. But when God's involved in it and he allows me to speak from the heart and he allows me to share my story, because all of us have a story. We talked about that on the way here. Like, man, I don't know what I'm going to say. It's like, yo, everybody has a story. It's just a matter of getting you talking in a conversation to where you're comfortable to just start letting it out. You'd be surprised the amount of inspiration that will come from this, not only from others, but from yourself, from your loved ones, people who are close to you. But yeah, so, you know, go back to what you were talking about with starting to involve your wife into what
okay. So I guess the easiest way to put this is, and I did want to touch on this because it's something that plays a big part in my life now. Back in New York, my wife and I, when she got pregnant with our daughter, something just hit us and said, "Hey, let's go to church. Let's start going to church." And we did. And we went every single Sunday. For maybe the occasional Sunday we'd miss if we weren't feeling whatever, but we made it a point to go, right? And we got involved. And it was a Christian-based church, and it was lively, and the people were great to be around, and for reasons that don't need to be mentioned, we steered away, right, towards the end. And then we had our first child, and life got crazy, right, because we're both new parents. We had no idea what to expect, and that got put on the back burner. And, some time went on, and we made the decision to move to Florida. And I think this is why I mentioned earlier it's the best decision we ever made to come down here, because I think it's the biggest part of what put us back into the faith. We have an amazing church down the block from our house. It's massive, has a separate building for the kids. My wife doesn't trust anyone with our daughter. The first time 2 weeks ago, we dropped our daughter Charlie off at the kids center for church, so my wife and I could sit there and enjoy that Sunday morning, that we have together for an hour, right? We sit next to each other, we listen, we absorb, and I couldn't believe that she did it. I almost didn't want to do it, and it was great. And now we know that we can, right? We can drop our daughter off. She can have her own experience at a very, very early age with God and faith and how all that stuff works, and then we get to have our uninterrupted experience, right? Reading the Bible every morning is something that has completely transformed my outlook on life. It's very crazy for me to say this. I denounced that book a long time ago, right? I did stuff in my life that I've only shared with a very few human beings because I'm not proud of it. And the average person would absolutely pass judgment, and I never thought I was even worthy of having any of that stuff, and I thought it was corny, and people that followed, organized religion were all nut jobs, right? I'd rather live my life happy and do what I want to do, whether it's sinful or not, right? If I'm happy, it doesn't matter. And that's just the biggest form of selfishness you could think of, and so, now waking up every morning reading the Bible, sometimes I understand what it says and sometimes I don't. And that's okay, right? It's the discipline of trying to have a new experience in my faith every morning, right? And starting my morning off on the right foot instead of thinking about something negative or something that I can't control or whatever it may be. That's not the first thought that pops into my head every morning, right? I hit my knees, I say my prayer. I ask God to allow me to trust him 150% with everything in my life. And then I read his word. It's been working. I don't know how, right? That's not for me to figure out. As long as I put my best foot forward and meet the promise I made to myself by starting my mornings off that way, it allows me to keep my day going that way, and not being embarrassed about showing other people that I live my life that way now. Right? Because Amen. I think it's very important to talk about what you're doing every day. Yeah. Because there's a lot of people out there that wish they could do that, right? And they don't know anybody close enough to them, first person, that does it to where they can say, okay, well, if he can do it, I can do it too, right? Or if she can do it, I can do it too. And that's why I thank God every day I met you, because you are out in the open with it. A lot more than most people, right? And that takes a certain level of courage and commitment. And, not worrying about being embarrassed or sounding corny or whatever. It's what works for you. It's what makes you happy, right? It's what feeds your soul. It's what balances your marriage at home. It's what gave you the extremely successful business you have. You give all of that to who? I don't even have to ask, right?
Glory goes to God.
So,
just real quick too, I want to go back a little bit too, because this may be different for future podcasts or whatever, but how Paul and I's relationship started is we met on Facebook. He pitched his business to me and said that he wanted to grow and he'd do anything he possibly could do to help the company that I work with to help us grow, and basically just went from there to a lunch. We had a lunch. Like I said, there's very few people that I come across in life. Like I hear salesmen, I hear all kinds of stuff on a daily basis in the position that I'm in doing construction, and just some people are different, you know what I mean? And Paul had that with him, and I told him that I'd help him out, and he's part of the my first elite member of the coaching program that I started, and it's really just turned into a friendship. It's more than that now. It's more than a mentorship. It's more than coaching. It's like, we kind of complement each other. And, I say that to say this is that, I can't take any of the credit. This guy's doing all the work. You know what I mean? It's all, there's just little hints here and there that it's like, hey, have you ever tried that? He's like, I never even thought about that, boom. And just simply, I say this all the time, just simply switching your faith and putting your faith in God. Fear is a lack of faith. So if I have faith, that means no matter what happens in life, whether I like the outcome, I'm okay with it, and that's truly walking in faith. When I open the door in the morning and I walk out the door, I say, you know what? It's in your hands, God. And no matter what happens, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm okay with it. And I know no matter what, I'll get through it. You could have financial issues. You could have problems with your relationship. You can have problems at work. No matter what happens, I'm going to get through it. And having that mindset has helped me, like I said, to step into that faith and cross that line and be more disciplined and realize that, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, And I fail to say that more because I don't want to come off because, looking at us, we're both, a couple of roughneck guys, and I wear the shirt like this. I wear this to Walmart, and I hear people say, like that takes courage, that takes strength to be bold like that and wear that. And I have another shirt that says trust God, and I don't care, man. I want to be bold. I want to let people know that just because I look the way that I look doesn't mean that I'm not a faithful man, and I don't want to do the right thing. And like you said, our past, we're not proud of our past. I'm not proud of my past, but you know what? I have an opportunity to change. I have an opportunity to change others. I could identify more with people who had been through what I had been through when I was at my bottom. So God uses people like us to help others, And if I can just help someone to have a little glimmer of hope to be able to get out of whatever situation they're in, like I said before, I was in a hole so deep that I was like, man, I'm already so deep, I might as well just keep on digging.
Yep.
Instead of realizing that, it just takes a few steps to get out of that hole. And part of it's asking for help. And whenever Paul reached out to me and I said, you know what, let's do it, and it's blossomed from that. So, this opportunity is just like it's a blessing for you. I feel like it's a blessing for me to be here sitting across from you. And who knows, this could be something, that opens up to something bigger. But I want you to touch on, like I said, our part of our legacy is our family, who we love, right? Our why, our purpose, right? If I could ask you one question of what your why is, what would it be? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you do what you do?
It's to see the look in my wife and daughter's eyes, knowing that they're safe, they feel protected, they feel provided for. They know that. Let me focus on my wife first, right? Because my daughter's not even 2 years old yet. She doesn't know much of anything, but children feed a lot off energy, right? So
Definitely.
a lot of energy. And it always makes me emotional, right? I don't look like the type of guy that tears up a lot and cries, but I am, and it's because I have a lot of pain and happiness inside of me, right? And sometimes one comes out more than the other. But
We have emotion. We have emotion.
A lot of
inside us.
emotion.
Real men are emotional. Real
Yeah.
men, that's and there ain't nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. So back to the question you asked of, why do I wake up every morning, right? My life is no longer for me anymore, right? I lived that part of my life. I got to live all the crazy years and live for myself and be selfish. I made a decision to marry my wife, and we got pregnant. She got pregnant with our daughter, and now we're a family. So my wife knows every time I wake up, I have a purpose, and that purpose is to love her, respect her, provide for her, and keep a roof over her head, right? And every time I leave that door, she knows that that's what I'm going to do. There is no wondering, like, where is he? What's he doing? Why hasn't he been home since 7 a.m.? It's 10 o'clock at night. My wife knows everything that I do at any given moment of the day, right? She knows how much money I make. She knows how much money I lose. She knows if I had a bad day. She knows if I had a good day. She knows everything, right? Where I am, what I'm doing, why it's taking me so long. That communication between my wife and I is bar none. And I think that's why our marriage is so amazing. So, back to the, once again, why do I wake up every morning? What's my purpose? It's my wife and my daughter. And I'll do anything it takes to keep that level of safety and security for my wife and my daughter. And also, I'm a man, right? It's what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to be the head of the household. Now, in 2025, that stuff we've steered away from that, unfortunately. And I really disagree with it. My wife and I have a very old school traditional household, which we talk about, and we're both very comfortable in our roles, and they're very defined, and we know what they are, right? My wife knows that she's full hands-on with my daughter all day long, right? She keeps the house immaculately clean. Dinner's always ready, lunch, breakfast, you name it. My clothes are always washed. She's always cheering me on, telling me how good of a job I'm doing, how proud of me she is. She keeps the house a home, right? She makes me not want to leave, and if I do, she makes me want to come back every night.
Amen.
And if she's doing her job, I got to do my job, right?
That's right.
I got to make her want to keep that house a home, clean, food, my daughter taken care of, learning. My daughter is, and I'm not just saying this because she's my daughter, she's the smartest little girl on the planet.
Amen.
And that's all thanks to my wife, because she's with her 24/7. I'm out working, right? I can't give her that constant attention. I think what I've been struggling with most is when I am home, trying to be present, right? And not worry about the calamity of the world and the situation that we're in as far as, starting a new business from scratch in an area where we have no idea, what anything is. We're in a brand new state, no network, and I'm trying to build a business from the ground up, and it's not easy, right? So when the regular business stuff ends and that work day ends, when I get home, it just keeps going, right? I got to figure out what invoice to send. I got to figure out what estimate to write up. I got to figure out, did I leave something behind, or all the tools out of my truck. You know, are the guys going to call out tomorrow? What am I going to do? You know, how to plan the route. I got to figure out how to shut that off, right? Or think about it on the way home in the car, because the second I walk through that door.
I think there's like there's a give and a take too with entrepreneurship, and it's almost like a sacrifice, right? So like instead of having that normal, you know, just 9 to 5, or you got, you know, paycheck that's going to direct deposit every Friday, I think there's a sacrifice that we make. And I tell people a lot, like, entrepreneurship is a mindset. Like, it's not, you don't have to be the owner of a business to be an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurship is, it's people just have it. And you just have to look at it like it's not going to be that way forever. You know, instead of saying like, I got to shut it off, well, that would mean like, hey, you got to go back to the grind and not have a business anymore. It's just got to be like, yo, honey, you know, I told my wife, listen, I want to build my following. God has a purpose for me. He wants me to share my story. He wants me to help others. And I have to sacrifice some of my time to do this right now. And there used to be like, even with like Bible study, Saturdays is my wife's, no matter what. The weekends, me and her have Saturdays. Like, I would have to ask permission to go to the gym on Saturdays. I would have to ask. There was a Bible study that we went to that they were doing an 8-week class, and it was a men's Bible study. So I said, hey, honey, you know, they got this men's Bible study. It's an 8-week program. It's a book, only 8 weeks, Saturday morning from 10 o'clock and usually went till 11:30 because we're eating breakfast. We're talking before, talking after, around noon. And she's like, yeah, you know what? Go ahead and do that. It's 8 weeks. You know, we'll get past it. And but I think it's just having that mindset and knowing like, hey, you know, as leaders of our household, and knowing that we have to, you know, our home is our kingdom, right? And it's letting them know that, hey, this ain't forever. This is just for a season. This is the bottom. I know from starting my business when I was 17 years old that the first 5 years I worked my butt off, you know, and same thing when I was in school full time. I told my son's mother at the time, I said, look, you know, I'm going to paramedic school, and I have a lawn and landscape and handyman business. I was like, but guess what? This is a couple years sacrifice. It's going to help us for the rest of our life, you know? And that's just, you know, what you have to understand and know and be able to communicate to our loved ones, right?
Yeah.
But I think you're doing great at it. And, you know, walk me through a little bit of how your faith walk started too, because you touched on it a little bit about when you were in New York. There was kind of like, I guess the seed was planted or whatever, and God just kind of led you to the people that you're around now, and walk us through that.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, you know, bounce around is a lot of stuff we want to talk about, and back it up. We started out in New York. We did the churching for a while. We steered away. Came down here, and I started noticing God a lot more, and not for myself, through other people, meaning people would talk about it more. People would say, God bless you. People would say, thank God. You know, the culture down here is a lot more God-based, especially where we live, I think, right? And, you know, the older Palm City, Stewart, St. Lucie areas, Fort Pierce, it's still that older Florida, right? It's still, like, not really well-developed, and people are more old school and traditional and conservative and friendlier, and started noticing it, and it just started clicking for me, you know? And then what really kicked it off was we went to TC3 on a Sunday, and we loved it, you know? And then simultaneously, I reached out to you and call that a coincidence, but I think not. I had really no idea how deeply rooted in your faith you were, right, at the time. And the more I got to know you and the more we talked, the more it came out. And then every Sunday, my wife and I would continue to go to church, and it'd be great. And then my father-in-law passed away, and that hit us pretty hard, you know? So we're sitting on the beach after we came home from New York from his funeral, and it's me, my daughter, my wife, and all of a sudden these group of young kids approach us, my wife and I. We're like, they introduced themselves as you know, missionaries from their church, and they were just out spreading the word of God, and they gave us these bracelets, and you know, we thought nothing of it, and then they walked away, and we turned around, and my wife and I said, they didn't approach anybody else on the beach but us. Mind you, there really wasn't anybody else on the beach anyway, but they came, they spoke to us, and they left. And then I reached in the bag, and I pulled out the bracelet, and I've been wearing it every day since, and it's faded, right? But it says, I am with you always, you know? And my father-in-law was, he was the man.
Yeah.
And that kind of sealed the deal for me, you know? And my wife couldn't believe it. She was like, whoa. And then I told you about it.
Yeah.
I was excited to tell you about it because I knew that you would understand, you know? And after that, man, it's just been nonstop. Kind of like took off out of nowhere. And then you invited me to a Bible study on Monday nights. And without even thinking about it, I said yes. I didn't, there was no thought process. It wasn't like, I don't know, like it seems kind of whack, like probably a bunch of cornballs sitting around a table, like praising Jesus, hallelujah. Like, I'm not into that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Little did I know. It's complete opposite of that, right? And I told my wife about it, and she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, what do you think? You know? I always ask my wife what she thinks, because if I'm in my head for too long,
I do too, man.
I get crazy,
Yeah.
right? And she kind of balances me out. She levels me out. She's like, I think it's a great idea. What's the worst that could happen? You said it earlier, right? What's the worst that could happen? And I said, nothing. I go there. I don't like it. I don't have to go back, right? And I know that you wouldn't care, right? You wouldn't take it in any type of way, shape, or form. Like, oh, I invited this kid. He doesn't want to come back. No.
And just real quick too, because like, you know, obviously my background is 12 steps. You know, I'm in recovery, and you know, I've worked the 12 steps and everything. And he had mentioned something to me, and he said that he's like, we don't have no Bibles around here. All we got is big books. And I said, well, where do you think the big book got the steps? You know, and it just flourished from there. But I'll let you keep going, man.
Yeah. So I showed up on a Monday night for the first time, and it's just a bunch of regular guys, man. You know, from every walk of life, sitting there, dissecting that book word for word. You know, and what they think it means in their life, what they think it actually means, right? And what struck me as kind of wild is how many different ways you can interpret one section of writing.
Takes us an hour to get through like three scriptures.
Exactly.
But we really unpack it, man, and that's what it's all about, you know, and applying it.
Correct.
What's the point of reading something? I mean, we can all read something and we can get out of it what personally we get out of it at that moment in time, but when you're sitting around with 8 different people and 8 different types of Bibles, whether it's the King James versions of Bibles, everybody has, what's yours say? Let's hear what yours has to say. Boom, we're unpacking this thing. We're like, wow, I'm going home and taking that with me, and I'm going to use that this week, you know, and encouraging each other, bringing each other up, being in a group chat of men to where we're able to keep each other accountable, lift each other up when we're down, be able to reach out and ask for prayer, ask for help. Hey, guys, I'm going through this. I know for a fact that I got about 5 group chats that I'm in with different Bible studies and just different. We do a men's retreat. We're going to touch on that later. But anyone in any one of those groups, it could be 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm stuck on the side of the road with a flat tire. And I know that I might have to go through a couple of people, but I would find somebody to help me. And that's just the way that it is. Like, we're all there no matter what. And, you know, we're going through hard times in our life. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to get it out of us. You're not supposed to hold stuff like that in. You know, I remember when I was going through the stuff with my sister when she was going through the cancer treatment and when she eventually passed away, like, folks were like, guys were telling me, like, man, you don't hold back. You don't have no filter. You tell us everything that's going on in your life. And I'm like, and it encouraged others to do that as well. And that's what we're supposed to do. And that's how I got through what I got through, because I was there to receive support from other men. And they were telling me, Jonnie, it's okay to cry, man. It's okay to feel sad about a situation like that. Like, we're taught as men when we grow up, when you skin your knee, you're like, brush it off and keep going. You know, like, we're taught to treat women like they're pieces of meat. We're taught to treat, worry about only ourselves and not about the next guy, and laugh at your buddy when he fell on the floor instead of being like, yo, man, you fell. Here, let me help you up. You know, that's what it means. And to help each other realize, even men that aren't in relationships yet, we got some younger guys, like, showing them what it means to be leaders of our kingdom, be leaders of our household. I love it, man. And that's why I'm 3 years straight. They joke with me now because I miss some Mondays, but the guys are like, oh, yeah, you missed like 14 weeks in the last year. And I'm like, I love you guys, but, you know, if it's my daughter's birthday or my son's, you know, something's going on, like, I miss some Monday night Bible studies. So, yeah. But go ahead, keep going.
So,
your walk, and as you were starting to come to the Bible study.
Yeah, so you know, coming to the Bible study every Monday, it allowed me to reach one of the goals that I set for myself, right? I have a very, very precise, detailed, and outlined set of goals, professional and personal, that I drew out on a piece of paper.
You shared them with me, yeah.
Yeah, I sent them to you, and I have them pasted on my whiteboard in my office in my house, and I take them very seriously. And it allowed me to hit one of those goals, right? And I set that goal not knowing that I'd really be able to hit it, right? With you know, doing something faith-based day in, day out, right? Attending church every Sunday, attending Bible study every Monday, right? It's a nice back-to-back. The way it's set up, right? It's like a nice back-to-back 2-day thing where I get to take what I learned in church on that Sunday, and maybe sometimes coincidentally we talk about it that Monday night at Bible study.
Usually the way it works,
right?
No coincidences.
Exactly. So in church, I sit there and I listen, right? And it's not interactive, and I just absorb what's being told to me. And then on Monday night, I share about it with a group full of guys, and I let them tell me maybe what it means, or I tell them what I thought it meant, right? And what's the purpose of information if you can't process it, just like you said? So that has translated into my everyday life, right, through personal relationships, business, family, friends, and it's moved mountains for me, you know. I never thought I'd be here in a million years. Never. Where I am today, right now, everything aside, faith-wise, right? I told you I denounced it. I thought it was corny, and then my pride and ego gets in the way, right? I've talked about it in a negative way for so long. How am I all of a sudden just going to switch my stance up on it in front of all these people? And it doesn't matter. I don't care, you know? That pride and ego will keep you from doing a lot of things you want to do, right? Or you go and do them in the wrong way. So I just kind of made a promise to myself where I said, I don't really care what anybody thinks, right? This is the way I'm choosing to live my life now, right? There's no other reason I chose to follow my faith other than the fact that it was straight up laid at my feet for me, right? It presented itself to me. It was my responsibility and obligation to either pick it up and run with it or shun it like I have been for my whole life, and this time I chose not to do that. And it has opened up some pretty wild doors for me. And I'm not saying that because I want somebody to start believing in God because they want doors to open up for themselves, right? It does not work like that at all, right? You have to be in a place in your life. I had to be in a place in my life where I was ready for it, right? Been through a lot of pain, a lot of diversity, ups and downs, failed relationships, jails, institutions, addictions, you name it, right? I was just ready for it. I can't explain it, right? But I also had to make the decision to go towards it when it presented itself to me, right? Because like I said, I could have easily stiff-armed it like I did my whole life and said, nah, that ain't going to work. Let me keep doing things my way.
That's me in a nutshell right there, bro. Same thing. I mean, it's like you never think that you're going to be where you are. I never thought I would be where I am in life, where I'm at today. I never thought that I would want to help people. I never thought that I would want to work with the next generation or be in jail, going to the county jail and bringing a message of hope in there. Never in my life. When I got out of jail, I said, I'm never coming back to this place. I don't ever care what anybody's got to say. But when a seed is planted in you and you water it, it's amazing. You know what I mean? And I say that too because, like, I can identify exactly with what you're talking about with your business. When I put God in the middle, he makes everything flourish. And I put him first, and I do what I'm supposed to do, and I obey, and I do the next right thing. And whenever I want to react negatively, and I'm not perfect, I still do. Like, I might cuss somebody out every once in a while, or talking to the people on the phone that are about my Comcast bill or whatever it is, and just treat them in a way that's maybe not, as spiritual as I want it to be. And I try to make up for it later. Or apologize promptly, or I'm not perfect in any stretch of the imagination, but whenever I put him first, like, it's amazing. Without expecting it, he makes everything flourish. And not all the time is it that way, but more times than not are things happening in a positive way. Yeah. And I think it comes with the mindset, being disciplined and being able to know that, like, walking in faith, no matter what happens, even if it's bad, I still turn it into a positive. Yep. Like, all right, anytime something happens to me in life and I'm like, man, this bill came out of nowhere. I don't know how I'm going to pay this. What do you want me to learn from this, God? And he wants me to learn to just put it in his hands. And sure enough, I get a phone call like, oh, here's a side job that's going to the exact amount of money that you need to pay for that bill. Never fails. And I'm not saying it's like that every time, but, I mean, it's definitely more times than not. It's been that way.
Yeah, I mean, I want to focus on that a little bit too, though, right? Because I'm a selfish person the way I was, right? And I still am, right? And it's something that I fight on a regular day basis, and something that I ask God to remove from me every single morning.
It's a double-edged sword. It can be good, but it can be bad too, because we have to put ourselves first, because if we're not who we are first or positive ourselves, how can I be there for somebody else? You're right.
I just what I want to touch on real quick is where your intention is, right? What are your intentions with anything you do in life, especially faith? You're not going to get anything out of something you set out to do with having ill intentions or self-based intention, right? The only thing I want to do in my life now is help other people. That's the only thing I want to do. My family, my friends, complete strangers. Because I know how good it feels when somebody helps you out of the kindness of their heart and doesn't expect anything in return. And there's been very few people in my life that have helped me out of the kindness of their heart without expecting anything in return. And I know that, right? It's not something that I have to figure out. It's something that my soul and my gut tells me. You can feel that person has no ill will, no ulterior motive, nothing to gain from doing what they're doing for me. They're doing it because they're a good person and they know it's the right thing to do. The feeling the feeling I've gotten inside of my chest when I've received that from somebody, uncomparable to any other feeling. It's about the closest you can get to when having that experience you have with God, right? It's like that hand on your shoulder that comes out of nowhere and is like, everything's going to be okay. And then you get this like overwhelming feeling like,
Surrender.
right?
Yeah.
I want to give that feeling to people. That's what I want to do now. I guess that's what I'm addicted to now, right? Because just like yourself, my life was riddled with addiction. Every addiction you could think of, right? If it wasn't drugs and alcohol, it was gambling or you name it, right? Riddled with it. And I overcame that, thank God. Thank God.
Mm.
And I used to say that all the time, right? When I first got sober and I was going to meetings and, you know, rah, 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 AA, Mr. AA, and bringing it to hospitals and institutions and start my own meetings there. I would always say, thank God, or, you know, by the grace of God, or by... But I never meant it. It was just something that I heard other people say that sounded good.
It's almost like tricks you into to believe in the truth, right?
Right, but how long did it take me to believe the truth, right? Here I am, 34 years old in another state, you know, hanging out with people I've never met before in my life, and all of a sudden my faith is I don't want to say restored, but I don't even know what words to use, but I'm in it now, and I'm going to do everything in my control that I can do to never step out of it, right? You know,
real quick on
Go
that
ahead.
too, because I tell folks nowadays that, you know, it's a number of years now that I've been connected with men's groups and just created really great relationships with some of these men. And I tell people that, like, it would be really, really hard for me to go back to the life that I lived just because of where God has placed me and where I'm positioned, you know, in my life, and with the group of the camaraderie and the fellowshipping with like-minded people and just the amount of people that I know from church and from the community, that if I went back to my old ways, it wouldn't take long for people to be beating on my door or calling my wife or figure like, hey, where's Jonnie? What's going on? Like, so like I said, it would just be difficult, you know, and you know, I think that's kind of what you're touching on right now, is that you're getting into that position now to where it's like, I don't go through a week yet now without being like, Paul, yo, what's up? Yep. Like, if you don't call me, I'm calling you or texting you, and that's what it's all about, man. And then not being afraid to pick up the phone, not worrying about what the other one, like I'm burdening somebody. Look, I'm a busy guy, but most people figure it out. Most of my real close friends know that if I don't pick up, I'll call you back.
Yeah.
You're not burdening nobody, man. If you got something going on, give me a call. And that's the hardest part, I think, for us as men, is to be able to reach out for help, ask for help. That's one of those things that we're taught and conditioned growing up, is that that's a sign of weakness. Mm-hmm. And it's not weak at all. It's actually a sign of strength. You know, that old saying that people used to say is the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. Well, I'm asking questions like crazy, man. I don't know everything. I don't claim to know everything. I don't claim to ever want to know everything. But, you know, I'm reaching. If I want to learn something about something I want to learn about, and you know more about it than me, guess what? I'm coming to you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So let's go to that for just a little bit, and because we all we have our specialties, and we when it comes to work life, and I want you to touch on that a little bit too, because, you know, that's a part of your journey right now, is that, you know, like you said, you got your business started. It was a leap of faith to hop into it. Just touch on your business a little bit right now, and why you got into it, and tell us about it.
Well, I don't want to reveal everything, right? Because there's a certain reason why I got into the business that I got into, and that's for you and I to know. The business is a little saturated, so the long and the short of it is one goes with the other, right? They go hand in hand. I have a junk removal and demolition business. I jumped into it with both feet, head first, you know, full speed, because I knew, A, how profitable it could be, right? I did all the research before I spent the money, right, and got the ball rolling. Junk removal is something that is often spoken about with, a negative connotation attached to it, meaning like, oh, you're in the junk removal business? Yeah, actually I am, and one truck with 2 guys and a dump trailer on the back running 5 days a week doing 2 full loads can generate just shy of $200,000 a year, right? So if you want to put 2 trucks on the road, you're right there making $500,000 after your fuel, your labor, and your dump fees are paid for. So you tell me, right? The other thing is, though, right, I've been in every single construction trade under the sun, right? I love work with my hands. I can't sit in an office. I've tried, right? I was a licensed mortgage officer. I was a loan originator. I was, I passed the national licensing exam, and I worked in an office. It never worked. Demolition is something that I enjoy. It's the first thing to get done in order for any type of renovation project to occur, right? So
it's the beginning of transformation.
There you go, right? You got to clear out the old to make room for the new. And that's kind of been what my life is about lately. I'm clearing out old 25-year-old friendships that no longer serve me or them in any way, right? They're just kind of dissipating on their own, whether it be through conflict or, misunderstanding or lack of communication. They've been fading. The person I am today, being in the best shape of my life I've ever been in, right, through discipline, I'm getting rid of that old body, being the oldest I've ever been, it's the most difficult thing to do, right? Because when we're younger, it's easy, right, to stay in shape. So the demolition for me is something that's rewarding because, being 34 and running my own business and trying to scale it, I do a lot of the work on my own, right? And I get to roll my sleeves up and get dirty and and break shit, right?
Yeah.
Safely, for the most part. Right,
it's actually fun. People pay money to do that.
Correct.
Like
there's
smash
rooms
and stuff. So
and I get to do that and get paid for it,
nice.
Right? And then I'm very good at it, right? And not to toot my own horn or to pat myself on the back, but I kind of know what I'm doing. And there is a little bit of an art to it, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times it's not a full demo, right? That the entire interior of a home or a commercial space isn't getting demolished. It's just certain things that the builder or the developer or the home flipper needs in order to turn their project into their vision, right? So
it's almost a specialty.
It is a specialty, right? And a lot of people advertise it, but they don't know what it entails, which is fine. I'll not ever knock anybody for trying something, right? Or trying to go out and do something they don't know how to do. You got to learn somehow, right? The junk removal and the demolition go hand in hand, right? Usually, when somebody wants to renovate their home or their commercial space or whatever it may be, there's a lot of buildup in stuff that we're a consumer-based nation, right? So we just buy, and if there's a space in our house where we can stash it because we thought we needed it at that point, but 10 days later we don't need it anymore, we got to hide it, but we can't live with ourselves to get rid of it. So we just sock it away in the attic, in the garage, in the shed or whatever, and it just builds up and accumulates. And then you walk into that space every day and you're like, God, I can't look at this stuff anymore.
It's like a storage unit.
Literally.
You pay for a storage unit for 2 years. You're like, man, I really want to cut some costs. You go in there like, I don't need any of this. I haven't been using it for 2 years anyway.
Right.
But so somebody got to get rid of it.
The tricky part is convincing people to pay for you to throw their trash out. That's the tricky part, right? Because to them now they've already internalized it or thought about it as garbage. And how are you going to pay for something that's garbage? Well, we have a full white glove service where you don't have to do a thing. And we even offer for you to sit there and you get to tell us, well, I'm keeping that, put that to the side. I'm throwing that out, that can go. And we'll divide the room up for you, right? And we'll stack everything neatly and nicely and organize it. But we pull up, we take care of all the heavy lifting. We load it in our trailer, we bring it to the dump. We deal with nails in our tires from all the roofers dumping their tile there at the dump. We deal with wear and tear on the truck and waiting on those crazy lines at the landfill and stuff. And you avoid all that for a set fee, a number that everybody feels comfortable with, you can live with. And my company gets to make money and pay my guys so they can put food on their table. I'm not looking to be a gazillionaire off junk removal. It's something that is busy work, right? It keeps my men employed day by day. They know that they're going to have a check at the end of the week. The demolition side is something that I can scale, plan, execute, and then give these guys a skilled trade as well, right? Anybody could take a couch and throw it in the back of a dump trailer, hit a button at the dump, and watch it fall out. Almost anybody, right? You just got to be strong enough to lift it. Demolition's a little different, right? You got to watch what you're doing. You got to be careful. You got to be safe. Can't get hurt. You have to. There's certain things you have to remove first. There's certain things you have to remove last. Right? It takes a little more.
Art.
It's the art. It takes a little more brain power.
Yeah.
And
don't cut the wire.
Correct.
We need the wire.
We need we need that copper pipe in the wall, right? Yeah. Or if you do happen to cut it, or run a hammer through it or a sawzall, you got to know how to cap it real quick, right? You got to prevent further damage, water damage, so on and so forth. And it's risk mitigation and thinking on your feet. There's a lot that goes into it. So that's why I started the junk removal and the demolition, because they go hand in hand. It's something I know how to do. It's something that I have a passion for. They say if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. Do I necessarily love running a jackhammer or swinging a sledgehammer? No. But when I get a full house teardown and I get to sit in an AC-cooled excavator and rip at it day by day, I'll do that day in, day out. It's very fun. And I get to make money as well. Yeah. Right? Why do you start a business? To be your own boss and to create wealth, right? This is not something that I'm going to look to do for the next 30 years. This is a means to an end. CM Junk and Demo is a means to an end for my family and I, right? It's a way for me to generate large amounts of capital so I can use that capital to advance myself further in what I really want to do, which is real estate development. Okay. That's my goal.
Awesome. Let's real quick, we're getting down to the end here.
Yeah.
But I want to just touch on real quick on really, like, obviously you've gotten to a point here where you're walking in your faith. You kind of have a path. You know where you're supposed to go, right? You have a purpose. You're moving in that direction, and that may change as you grow and change, but you kind of have a direction that you're moving in. As you're moving in that direction, what kind of an impact do you want to leave? And how do you see that for your life now, as far as, we talk about legacy. What kind of legacy do you want to leave at this moment in your life? You touched on it a little bit, but, I kind of expand.
Yeah.
Especially the family and the loved ones, and then, like you said, your push now to want to help people.
I think the word legacy is multifaceted, right? There's many folds, right? There's your personal legacy, there's your professional legacy, there's the legacy that you leave to your children of how they look at you, right? Whether while you're living or when you pass away. I've never ever really been asked that question by anybody, so I've never had to really sit there and think about it. But if I had to answer that at this moment in time, personally, my personal legacy, when I go, right, from this moment out, whoever attends my funeral or knows of my passing won't be able to say a bad word about me. As much as they want to, they can't. I didn't give them that option.
Yes,
right?
Sir.
Professionally, and I can elaborate on that personal one for a while, but we don't have a lot of time, and maybe that could be for a different episode or whatever. But professionally, whether my kids want to take over whatever I've built down the road or not, I'm never going to force them into doing something that they don't have a passion for, right? It took every ounce of my blood, sweat, and tears to build that and hopefully give it to them, If they don't want it, they don't want it, right? And I'm not going to force it down their throats. But I want to be able to give it to somebody who deserves it, right? And I want to give somebody a fighting chance that they normally wouldn't have gotten if they didn't put the hard work in for me in my company and my endeavors without expecting anything in return other than being paid a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, right? And then sometimes going above and beyond what I pay them to show me their value and want to grow the ladder, right? That I'm going to give them every option to grow in. But if I could give that over to somebody, right, that didn't have a father who was an entrepreneur or didn't have anybody in their life that, really wanted to get out of their negative situation between whether it's their upbringing or community, I want to give that to them. I want to give that person a head start. Whoever that person may be, guy, girl, doesn't matter. That's my professional legacy, right? And I guess the last thing I could touch on as far as legacy goes is, and a lot of people have probably seen this video, and I'm going to probably really get it wrong, but I think Bob Marley was asked this question once, and as far as like, what do you want your legacy to be? And, and he answered the question with a question. It's like, well, is legacy defined by possessions and money and materialistic things, right? It was something along those lines. And he then answered his own question and said, it's not. None of that stuff defines your legacy. It's how many people you've helped, whose life you made an impact on, and how is your name spoken about when you're gone, right? And I'm a firm believer in the ripple effect in life. Everything that I do sets another, 10 actions in motion. And I will never truly know how I've affected somebody by that decision I've made to do, because it can transmute into the world in 100 different ways. The only thing I would love is to maybe get one of those ripples sent back to me and just be able to acknowledge that one decision I made that day went out into the universe, affected somebody positively, and they were able to reciprocate that in a way where I was able to feel it and know that it actually happened. I'll continue to do it whether I know it or not.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to feel it one day, right? How it comes back to you. In whatever shape that may be, whatever form that presents itself. But I think that's where my vision is right now. How do my kids think about me when I'm gone? What are they going to say about their dad when he's gone? What kind of a difference did I make in my life? Did I make the same mistakes my parents made bringing me up? Because they had no idea what they were doing. There were two kids that had kids from another country that did the best they could by trying to put food on the table and a roof over our head, and they were dealing with the stresses of life, and they parented how they parented. And I want to be able to identify that, right? And not make those same mistakes if possible with my kids, and get rid of that generational nonsense that we're taught, right? Of shoveling your feelings under the rug, not talking about stuff, no communications. Whatever happens in this family stays in this family. The people outside of this family aren't your friends. They don't need to know what's going on here. That's strictly because of embarrassment, because whatever's going on in this family isn't right, and you don't want anybody else to know about it because you don't want to feel embarrassed, right? That's why I always say I'm an open book. Anything I do in my house, I can talk about in front of a room full of 1,000 people.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, I guess there's no right or wrong answer, because everybody's going to have their own answer. And I can definitely identify with a lot that you just said. And I think we talked about it earlier on this week at the Bible study. But it's being able to break that generational curse, that being able to break chains, and do something different. Do something a little bit different. You know, if I grew up in a family that thought it was okay to use drugs in front of everybody, and some people have alcoholic families, whatever it is. And I'm not saying it's wrong, because some people, you know, but like you said, I mean, it's certain things that we go through when we're younger that you're like, you know what? I don't have to be that way for me and mine. I don't have to be that way from this point forward.
Correct.
And, you know, I think that's real important. I think when we're talking about leaving an impact is it could be just opening a door for somebody at the 7-Eleven that day, and they could be going through something, and you just change their whole perspective on life. You know, I used to talk about it when my dad would go into the store. The guy would talk to anybody, put a smile on people's faces. And, man, if you can just go through life and just switch the room up, especially nowadays, the way that our culture is and the way that society is created, just people that are just socially awkward, that don't know how to just reach out and talk. That, you know, my son likes to play video games, and it's like, you know, he tries to order a soda at the going out to dinner, and he's like, "Can I have a Sprite?" And I'm like, "Son, tell her what you want."
Say
you know, like,
chest.
you know, not even like saying it like that, but just being able to speak confidently to somebody,
Right.
And get out of that, you know, societal thing of just being stuck in a room all the time, and only being able to speak to somebody on your microphone that you've never met before, that's 10 states away.
Yep.
But breaking the chain, breaking the generational curses, I think is kind of what you touched on, essentially. And I think that's awesome, man. And I think that, you know, you're on a great journey. You're moving in the right direction. You have an awesome path, and you know, I'm proud of you, and glad to know you. And I'm super grateful that you were able to come onto the podcast today. And yeah, who knows, there may be episode 2. And you know, I'm just gonna put this in God's hands, and like I said, just truly grateful for this opportunity. And if you got anything that you want to leave with the folks, what would you want to leave them with?
And that's funny you say that, because I was going to ask you if I could say one more thing. Discipline yourself before somebody else does. And that starts with mindset. If you make the decision to change your mindset, the way you look at life every day, and do that in a disciplined fashion, it's the only way you're going to be able to leave a legacy, right? Because
Yes,
other
sir.
than that, you're just existing every day. You're going through the motions of life without any profound impact on others, and that's not what we're here for. We're here to change other people's life,
Yes, sir.
right? That's all I want to do. I took a leap of faith. My wife convinced me. Only reason why I did it is because I knew I had a wife that had my back. And I knew that if we came down here and whatever I chose to do didn't work out, she wouldn't be the wife that said, "Well, I told you that it isn't going to work, and you're an idiot, and I can't believe you blew through all our money, and we worked so hard for all this stuff, and now we're in a one-bedroom apartment driving a Toyota Corolla." I'd never hear those words from my wife a day in her life. She'd say, "Well, at least you tried. You tried your best," right? And that's why I made the leap of faith. So if anybody out there is looking to take that leap of faith, the best advice I can give you is do it and figure everything out on the way down. Take that leap of faith and figure everything out on the way down.
That's powerful.
Or on the way up.
Or on the way up. Or maybe down first and then up.
You never know what your trajectory is going to be, right?
That's it.
But you have to jump. You have to walk away from that fear that's holding you. I walked away from that fear that's holding me back. And guess what? Every morning I wake up and there's a different fear knocking on my door that I have to walk through every single day. The only way I could do that is by having faith, right? And the only way I have faith is by disciplining myself to yearn for it and chase after it and surround myself with people that have it, right? If I want something that somebody else has, I'm going to put myself in that room with them every chance I get, because they're going to show me how to get it, because they already did it, right? So
Awesome, man. Well, I think that's all the time we have. It is all the time we have, but, you know, I'm grateful that we had this opportunity. Glad you guys tuned in, and, you know, we'll see you on the next one.
nice. Hell yeah.